my name is Mihir Shep, and I'm a combat design lead on God of War Ragnarok at Santa Monica Studio.
I am Jason McDonald. I'm the design director of God of War Ragnarok.
So with God of War Ragnarok, we really expanded all of the options that players can have in playing the game. There's multiple ways to map inputs in the controller, ways to use the touchpad swipe. We really want to cater to the widest audience possible because we know that players play their games differently, and the DualSense Edge controller adds to that.
There's a lot of features I like on the DualSense Edge for God of War Ragnarok, which I like, because I'm, in action. So it's like, having a nice kind of solid control in your hand works really well for God of War.
In the case, there actually are different sticks that you could use. There's the default on the PS5 controller, but then there's these low domes and the high domes, and I chose the low domes. They're like the classic DualShock analog sticks from before.
In God of War, you're hitting the triggers a lot, because that's where your primary attacks are and aiming. So I ended up using the low stops for the triggers to make them feel more like regular buttons.
With the adjustable trigger stops, the R2 button, we use it as kind of a heavy attack button in the game. And so being able to adjust the trigger stop so that it is more responsive, it feels more like a straight button. And then the aim input, which is on the left L2 button, I had the trigger stop over there set to a medium setting. And overall, it just felt faster, more responsive, which again, in the heat of combat is kind of an added bonus.
The back buttons, I actually used a lot of setups. The first thing was just to remap the L3 and R3s because we ended up pressing that a lot. I mapped sprint over to the left, map lock on over to the right. But I think what I really settled on was weapon switching just because the speed in doing that were much quicker than the D-pad.
So you can have your thumbs on the analog sticks the whole time in the middle of combat, look around freely, move freely, and change weapons when you want. And I think finding the right fit for you and being able to map them to buttons in the heat of combat makes certain actions a lot easier.
Setting up the controller was fantastic. It's really fast just using the function buttons to immediately go into in-game UI.
There's kind of a guided tutorial that kind of walks you through the settings that you need to do.
So it allowed me to kind of just make a lot of changes, go back to the game, test them, then go right back into the menu. Pretty seamless, really quick.
And then it led me into changing the stick sensitivity. And in God of War Ragnarok, you want to move the character fairly quickly, especially in the middle of combat. So the left analog stick, I set that to the quick setting. And I did the inverse of that on the right analog stick, which is used for camera movement, right? So you're using that for looking around and for aiming.
Because how easy it was to switch the profiles, I actually ended up making a bunch of them.
There's a function button on the controller, and being able to kind of hot swap the profiles to say, hey, in this game, the back buttons are the weapon switches, but in this other game, they could be the, throw a grenade or reload. That functionality just being easy and just in the controller, you can press it at any time you want, is something that I think a lot of players are going to enjoy. There's actually a neat feature with the trigger dead zones. What that means is that you can control when the input is registered on how you press the triggers over here. So I actually increased the default setting so the triggers would not respond until I press the button past a certain amount. By just adding a little bit of that dead zone in there, I wasn't getting any accidental trigger presses. And using that along with the trigger stop meant that, just overall the triggers felt more like responsive buttons.
For God of War, we already try to make a lot of effort to allow you to customize. We know that some people like to attack on squares, some people like, all sorts of button mapping. So we had all that in the game already. And the DualSense Edge just kind of lets you take that to another level. Having the back buttons, having the trigger stops, having more ways to kind of customize your own play experience, being able to tweak the way that the analog sticks move. It's kind of already in line with what the game tries to do. It just adds even more to what you can do and play the way that feels best for you.
PlayStation